Hello and welcome to the F1 show with me, Hugh Hatrick. And on this week's podcast, we're going to go into the main headlines of the week for all the big F1 news. And we're going to start with the news of Stefano Domenicali, who has really given his contribution into the Formula One rules and the start of the season, which has been very controversial. A lot of people are not happy. So, what is he saying regarding the new regulations? Well, let's have a look. Of course, F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali used to work for Ferrari. He seems to get on with the drivers quite well. He's that kind of middleman that kind of speaks between the fans and the drivers, and of course the FIA as well. He was saying that people like Max Verstappen need to be listened to, which is at least something, but must remember the weight of their words. Well, you can take that how you will. I think it's a very kind of non-committal answer, to be fair, from Stefano Domenicali, because really most people they want some serious action now. He is saying that they can make some tweaks to the energy management to address the dangerous closing speeds and to make qualifying more about pushing to the limit again. But that seems to be about the only thing that he's saying in terms of the changes. He has said that he thinks the F1 figures have been largely positive so far, including attendance numbers and TV viewership of the first three Grand Prix. At the same time, purists and multiple F1 drivers have voiced some major criticisms, mainly about the need for lift and coast and super clumping, with now more energy starved cars. Now, Domenicali does want to deal with all that feedback in a constructive way, but he does call on F1 drivers to keep the bigger picture in mind. Well, my goodness, what might that be? I wonder if that means because most of the drivers want to go to bigger engines like V8s and V10s and really scrap this kind of V6 hybrid stuff that we've had for the last number of years and get us into racing that really has a lot of more noise and a lot more show. But he goes on to say, my conversations with them are definitely very open and they know that I do care about their opinions and I want them to be involved. And we've got a picture here of Domenicali and Max Verstappen. But of course, there is sometimes a sort of gameplay that you have to have. If you speak to the drivers at the top, they are always very happy because they are winning. The others can be frustrated, also because they love a different way of racing, and he respects both points of view. However, he emphasised that respect for the championship as a whole is an important factor as well, with drivers not forgetting the overall platform that they have been able to build their careers on. And he said to them, listen, guys, don't forget that what we are doing is because we did the right things together. So be respectful of a sport that gave to all of us an incredible opportunity to grow, to have a lot of money, and to develop a personality in the world that in other sports you may love better, but they cannot give it to you. I think that's what I told them. And I think that has been acknowledged. Well, hopefully he knows what he has told them. He didn't go on to say that Verstappen's words do have weight, but and he said that some drivers might be tempted to look at other forms of racing. Thoughts naturally turned to Max Verstappen and his increasing number of GT3 outings. When it was noted that endurance racing is by definition a balance of performance discipline, Domenicali smiled. Don't ask me about the balance of performance because you will find someone that has to respect other championships. So it does seem rather non-committal, I have to say, from Stefano Domenicali. But please let me know in the comments of what you think about his statement and whether or not you think anything is actually going to change. And if you're listening on Podbean, give us a follow. It'd be great to get some more followers. We've got over 50, but it'd be wonderful to get some more. And thank you very much, by the way, to everyone who's been listening across the globe. Our biggest audience is in America, followed by Britain, but we've got people in Spain, in Belgium, in fact, all over the world, even in Vietnam. So if you're listening from Vietnam, a very warm welcome and thank you very much for supporting the podcast. Let's get on to the next main Formula One headlines. Now, the Racing Bulls suggest a continuous rollout of the F1 2026 regulation tweaks. They have done reasonably well. Racing Bulls team boss Alan Permain says it might be wise for Formula One to roll out power unit tweaks over several races, given the challenging stretch of the upcoming races. And we should be continuously trial energy management tweaks because of the upcoming pair of sprint weekends. F1 stakeholders, God, that's a name, you know, when you stakeholders, including governing body, the FIA, the 11 teams and their respective power unit representatives. Lots of jargon in that, isn't there? Are holding a series of meetings to formulate and then vote on solutions to improve the 2026 regulations. In the wake of the Haas driver Oliver Behrman's 50G accident in Japan, there is a major focus on reducing the safety risks associated with the increased closing speeds between cars, while restoring qualifying to an all out spectacle. Well, they're going to have to do something, I think, pretty major in order to get that. Now, they did have a meeting on Monday, followed by an e vote, and the resulting changes will be implemented as early as the Miami Grand Prix on the first weekend of May. Although the FIA single seater director, Nicholas Tombazzi, recently suggested there may be a two-stage rollout of the rule refinements. Now, unfortunately, we can't really find out what these special voting decisions were because they haven't told us. As soon as we find out, no doubt, we'll be able to bring it to you. So they're wanting to take things quite steadily to see exactly um, what difference it's going to make. Now, the FIA has banned an engine trick used by both Mercedes and Red Bull that gives them a significant advantage in qualifying sessions ahead of the Miami Grand Prix. Both Mercedes and Red Bull had polar opposite starts to the new era of Formula One, with Mercedes securing three consecutive victories, while, of course, Red Bull fight in the midfield. It is understood that despite competing with the German manufacturer's power unit, the Red Bull chassis is significantly limiting performance, leaving them sixth in the Constructors' Championship. Now, Max Verstappen has been unable to break into the top five of any of the opening three Grand Prix, with a sixth place finish in Australia, his best result, heading to Miami next month. However, Bull's woes are now set to be considerably worse, with the race reporting that a trick used themselves and also by Mercedes for speed boost at the end of a lap has now been banned. So the trick meant that all four drivers for the teams were able to run at maximum deployment as they powered towards the finish line rather than running in a ramp down rate like other teams. This reportedly gave both teams a 50 to 100-watt advantage during the final sector, while rival cars were slowing down. The advantage is believed to be extremely minimal, with the benefit more likely to be in the hundredths rather than the tenths of a second in most tracks. However, it can still have a huge impact on grid positions. So, how did Mercedes and Red Bull exploit the engine loophole? Well, they were able to exploit this rule due to F1 regulations not requiring teams to follow the ramp down requirement if the MGUK is shut for technical reasons. And this loophole was designed to allow teams to shut down their MGUK to avoid potentially damaging the engine if issues were detected. However, the FIA were aware that this could create an advantage if it was exploited. To combat this, the FIA introduced continuous offset, which meant that if a driver's MGUK was disabled, it could not be activated again for the following 60 seconds. While this acts as a deterrent during the race, both Mercedes and Red Bull quickly realised that drivers didn't need the MGUK on their cooldown laps, making the final stages of qualifying laps the perfect time to exploit the loophole. It is unknown how big an impact this will have on the F1 pecking order, with the true impact only going to be revealed as the cars hit the track for Miami sprint qualifying. There's a lot in that, but at least that is quite an interesting situation. Will it actually make a difference to Mercedes and Red Bull? And will that allow McLaren and Ferrari to maybe close up a tenth or two? Well, according to the FIA, it might just be a tiny little bit, but you never know. We'll see if Ferrari bring any more updates as well to Miami, because it'd be great to see them closing that gap to Mercedes and McLaren too, so we can get a real championship going. And potentially there might be regulations changed as well, and we might see the energy deployment being a lot less, and that might make the cars a little bit closer. But again, let me know what you think in the comments. I would really like to hear your comments. In fact, I'd be more than happy to read them out in the next podcast. So let me know what you think. Now, finally, the weekend past there, I visited Silverstone. Now, there wasn't any race on at the weekend. It was a kind of birthday present that I went with my good friend Jonathan Sutherland, who you've seen on the show before. Now, we happened to stay at the Hilton Hotel, which is a brand new hotel. So it's only just been built in the last wee while. but it has some great advantages. Now, I'm not sponsored by them, but this is quite good because if you're planning on doing, say, a race day, when you can drive supercars or perhaps the Silverstone performance driving, where you can drive the single seaters, there's also go karting that has just started at Silverstone, which I believe you can do from just £30. So a reasonable amount. I don't know how many laps that might get you, but to race at Silverstone in go karts, I think would be rather exciting. But going back to the Hilton Hotel, it was £134 that we were paid that we paid to get the night on last Friday, which was the 10th of April. But it has the great advantage of looking out onto the track. Now, one side looks to the car park, the other side has the balcony. Now, that was a more expensive room, but even when it's not major race meetings, it isn't too expensive. And if you get the Hilton app, you can actually get points and even a little bit of money off. And they promise to give you the best rate going if you go direct. But the advantage is when you look out of your window, if you have a balcony view, you look straight onto the starting grid. You're right there. You can see the traffic lights on the bridge and you can see the grid and you can see the cars coming around. We actually woke up on the Saturday morning to Ferraris and Aston Martins and McLarens racing round there with new drivers behind the wheel, which was rather exciting. And it really takes a lot of stress out of the whole experience because if you're staying there, you get up, have your lovely cooked breakfast in the morning, and then you can head up to, I think it's the fourth or the fifth floor, and there's a bridge, and you go straight across the bridge, and that's you at reception for the driving day, and you simply go down the stairs, and that's you into the pit lane, and you can see the whole pit area. It's fantastic. It really kind of felt rather exciting, and I have to say, I would have quite liked to have done one of those race driving days myself. It's been a very long time since I've been able to fit into a racing car, but I would love to have a go. But yeah, so if you're happen to coming driving near Silverstone and you want to do a race day, I would thoroughly recommend the Hilton Hotel right on track because you get a great view. It's really easy going, and it's actually not too expensive. So we'll be back. I'm going to have to push and prod Rue and Simon to get them back on the show so we can do a live show and everyone can see it, whether it be on YouTube or we'll have it recorded onto Podbean as well. But thank you so much for watching. And remember, you can give us a like or subscribe to the channel, whatever you're listening to this podcast on. But I hope you're having a wonderful week. We'll be back very soon. Liam, that's Levitius, he'll be back with us again after the Miami Grand Prix. He was going to give us an update. We'll do a live show with him as well, so look out for that. But we'll be back next week with more F1 headlines. So drive fast, don't crash, and we'll see you very soon. Bye just now.